attendance. We do have some technical issues, so we might just adjourn for a second and we'll find out how long they're going to be. We'll keep going with the meeting. We opened the meeting at 9:14 a.m. And we shut it down because we had some technical problems, but we're going again. So, okay, do we have someone to move, well I will move a leave of absence for Councillor Taylor and Ladbrook. Do we have a seconder? Councillor O'Neill. Any opposition? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0 then. Thank you. Okay, moving on.
Page 6.
Okay, confirmation of the meeting on the ordinary meeting of the 23rd of August. Do we have someone to move? Councillor Hancock.
I move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on 23rd of August 2023 be confirmed.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Burkett. All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0.
Kel, I just added the word ordinary meeting. After the word ordinary, I added the word meeting.
Okay, so if we move on to the special meeting of the 29th of August 2023 at 4 p.m, we'll do that. Minutes. Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that the minutes of the special meeting held on the 29th of August 2023, scheduled to commence at 4 p.m. be confirmed.
Yeah, do we have a seconder? Councillor Guthrie. Do we have any opposition? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0. Okay, moving on to the special meeting on the 29th of August at 4:20 p.m. Do we have someone to move on those minutes? Councillor Burkett.
I'd like to move that the minutes of the special meeting held on the 29th of August 2023, scheduled to commence at 4:20 p.m, be confirmed.
We have a seconder. Councillor O'Neill. All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0. Okay.
Page 35.
Yeah, page 35, 8.1, notice of amend resolution, OM 10 or /10.2021.84. I'd like to declare a conflict of interest on this item. So basically, as I've said, the notice of amended resolution OM /10.2021/84, declaring councillors Tyson Golder, myself. I'm the president of Maranoa District Junior Soccer Association, declarable conflict of interest, and I will leave the room while the matter is discussed and voted on. Okay, Deputy Mayor, if you could take over, that would be good.
Okay, the Mayor has left the room. Agenda item 8.1, notice to amend resolution OM-10.2021-84. Do I have a mover, please?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, for sure.
Can we ask Tanya just to take us through it? I see the change, but it'd be nice to hear the read.
Through
All right.
the chair. The District Soccer Association Council has agreed to enter into a with a further option of another 10 years over the land that the soccer club currently uses. What the soccer club has asked as part of the negotiations is that they also take on what we refer to as the fields as well. So they'll have the two sporting fields. Those two sporting fields are adjacent to each other. So we've just brought it back to council to get council's thoughts on that proposal to have the two fields, and also because the current resolution is just and what we call the old Wattles fields.
Councillor Hancock.
Through you, Chair, Major Tanya, is it
Does anyone use the old Wattles fields now?
Through your chair, I don't believe so.
Not, I can, well, I think I can answer. Not any designated club. People do go there and, as they do with the soccer field, you see them there occasionally kicking, but there's no designated.
There's
The
no
clubhouse
designated club.
the clubhouse is owned individually. It's a privately owned individual, and the field was always council. So there's no.
So it's just the field, it's not the clubhouse?
It's not the
No,
club.
it's privately owned. Well, yeah, well, I think the darts club own it now.
Yeah, and that doesn't conflict? Because we're just, like, obviously that's sitting on that land.
No,
That
it's,
won't.
well, it's adjacent, but yeah, they're side by side. They've got their own land.
Clubhouse is a separate parcel.
It's on its own
It's
land.
a separate parcel?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Or we'll have a mover, please. Councillor Guthrie.
I'd like to move that Council amend resolution number OM/10.2021/84 to read as follows. That Council 1 grant a peppercorn lease to the Roma District Junior Soccer Association Incorporated for a period of 10 years with a further option of 10 years over lot 82 on CP 8614, lot 2 RP 170339. 2. As freehold owner of the land described as lot 82 on CP 8614, grant in principle consent for the Roma District Junior Soccer Association to relocate the clubhouse and associated assets anywhere within the lease area subject to council's standard building and planning approvals. And 3. Authorise the Chief Executive Officer or delegate to finalise the terms and sign the lease and any associated documentation.
Seconder, please. Councillor Burkett. Is there any opposition to the motion? Anyone wish to speak for or against? Okay, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Edwards?
Yes.
6-0. Which way did the mayor go? I think he went this way.
No, he's out
Out
here.
this way, I think.
Yeah, he's out here.
Okay, moving on, I would imagine we're on to page 45.
Yes, we are.
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Use of magnesium in water supply reticulation. Councillor Burkett.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to lay this on the table for some more information. It doesn't seem to answer the question. It doesn't say you can't use it. It's more or less saying it's an option, but there doesn't seem to be any information backing. When you look it up, like it's got a lot of health benefits to have it. Regulated blood pressure can improve that. Stronger skeletal, better for your sleep, treats severe headaches, and good for your heart and all that. There is a downside if it's too strong and water hardness and stuff like that. But I want to get more information because Councillor Hancock tasted water this morning and it is unpleasant to drink, let alone what else it could be doing wrong for you. So I think all communities would like a little bit more due diligence if we can, a bit more information. I'm not saying that the officer didn't do that, the manager, but we need to see it, and I'd like to see pros and cons for both. Please.
Councillor Hancock.
I understand that you've moved it late on the table, but I'm just wondering, is the officer available? Because they might have that information that we could actually ask them today. Is there?
We can lay it on the table till later in the meeting.
Is there an officer available?
Certainly can make
But-
contact.
Yeah, but don't you want enough information you can, because there'll be a fair bit of information,
Yeah.
don't you?
Well, have we got
I'd just like to know I'd just like to know I'd like for an officer to be able to speak to the report that they've given, and then we can ask for the further information.
Can I just make a suggestion? We got another meeting next week, haven't we?
We do.
We lay it till next week because it's not like
Mr Mayor,
it's going to happen.
my question is the manager here, or would we have to track him down on the phone too?
Well, that's the thing.
I'll
The most
just
efficient way is it not go to next week. It's
Yeah.
only 1 week.
I move we lay it on the table to next week and have that information as well as the manager in the room.
Does
So just through the chair, to be clear on the information that you want, because basically this report is actually saying that the use of chlorine is noted in the Australian Drinking Water Quality Management Plan, which is approved by the regulator, and that it's the majority of chemical used right across Australia, and that's why we also use it. But what you want to understand is could an alternative be used, and what would be the pros and cons of that?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, because in reality, it was sort of forced on a lot of the shires. Like I said, the water's been here since 1950. The water town was not one issue in Mitchell alone, right up till they made that decision. So I just don't know why they're reasoning that's above us, but yeah. So.
Look, when you're managing the water supply, you need to provide Australian water quality drinking plan that's approved by the regulator, and it would have, you know, what would you call controls in place to ensure that you could meet those standards, right? Look, the challenge is if we haven't addressed why the alternative should not be considered. Happy to have that included, but essentially what we're doing is following standard practice. Should any change to that plan need to occur, it would have to go through a regulatory process in order to be endorsed. But sure, we can answer those questions. Happy to do that, whether it's in person or...
Councillor O'Neill.
I suppose for me, it's just to understand, like, you look at some of the language, it says the most used disinfection process are chlorination. Well, that's the most used. That implies that someone else is doing something different. It's the most used.
Yeah,
so I'd be interested to understand, can magnesium be used, and is it being used elsewhere?
Yeah.
You know, that's what you're after, isn't it?
Well, because like I said, the first time you can drink magnesium, you can have it in your pools. So chlorine's doing both of those. So they're obviously ticking boxes from along those lines. So I don't know.
So Councillor Burkett, what we're about to, because I think it's important to get everyone what they want out of this report. Instead of saying the next meeting, possibly the next meeting, because that might take longer to actually...
To a future meeting. Future ordinary meeting, Kel, is that all right?
Yeah, because to me, CEO, it was actually asked how to do it and can it be done.
Yeah.
So none of that came back. It just said, oh, it's almost like they prefer chlorine and it's the most common use, but didn't answer the question of the report.
And look, it's not a subjective choice. We actually go through the regulator to use the chemicals that we use. But again, if we haven't addressed that for you, happy to make
I'll
sure
just
we do.
give you an instant. Queensland Health are the ones that force this. The only incident we've had since chlorine has been at the hospital, and what they've had to do after that is beyond ridiculous. The amount of money they poured in there, and that's the only case since then has been over there, and they're the ones that enforced it.
So really, CEO, to me, what we need is, if council wanted to do it, could they do it legally? And who's doing it and how could you do it?
Yep.
And that's like high level, and obviously there's a lot of work. It's just an information report.
Yep, sure.
But who's doing it and how could it be done? We know what we're doing now.
Yep.
We know it's very common, but it's about that. Okay, so we're going to the vote on laying it on the table to a future meeting. All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0. Chair, you're right. Thank you. 12.2, property accesses and access driveways, design, construction and maintenance, council policy. I've got a question. With this one, what's it really different to what we've had in the past? I see some highlighted, there's on just what's in the Local Government Act, but what's the main difference with this?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. There's not a lot of changes to this policy. It's obviously been a policy in place for many years now. So I've just noted on page 50 sort of the key updates, outline just key responsibilities for property owner and council. So there's just a bit of not a lot of clarity between where the property line starts and where council's responsibility starts. There's generally been no issues with it. It's just not clear to communicate. So it's actually just putting more words around that. I said their existing flow, it was just a bit stop-start, so it sort of starts from the top down. There's a new section just around local area directors, so bringing it in line with our local area model now. Just when we get requests, it used to be obviously centralised, it's just including input from local area directors, and changes to legislation where relevant. Probably the big change is just the inclusion of that redundant vehicle crossings section. So redundant vehicle crossing is generally when someone wants to put a new crossing in and they've got an old one that's got the curb all broken out. It's to sort of say that as part of it, we'd like to get that curb reinstated. Otherwise, you just end up with 5 or 6 driveways along a frontage that
aren't being used.
it doesn't say in there that it still allows people to come to council if they don't agree that they have to pay for all that. That'd be a council decision outside of policy, but it just sets up that if someone wants to put a new crossing in and the old one's no longer used or needed, it's to just put the back of the curb back in place.
A fine example of that was in front of Better, wasn't it? Better Electrical.
Yeah.
When it was a car dealership, there was 2 or 3 there. Along the front, and that's all been changed, but
yeah, it can affect the curb a lot, like how much water it starts to push back into the properties if they just keep cutting them driveways out. So that's probably the big change, Mr. Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Deputy Director, the situations where there's 2, like say a corner block, and they had access either side. Just in Louisa Street, I know there was pretty sure there was 2, and when they did the new curbing, they took that one out. Is that? Can you have 2? Like you can have 2, or is it?
Yeah, policy doesn't say that you can't have the multiple crossings. It definitely allows that. Yeah. What probably happened in Louisa? It's stand-up curb. Yeah, it'd be something we have a look at. Sometimes the curb goes back to roll back, which is a semi-mountable curb that you can actually.
Combo, yeah.
Yeah, get up now. We have had a bit of feedback that it's still steep, so we are looking at that profile of that curb, whether it can be softened even.
That'd save a lot of money and time down the track if it's like that, isn't it?
It does, yeah. It's got a little bit of a belly on it that people say that it still does take a bit to mount that.
Yeah.
So.
No, thank you.
But yeah, it doesn't.
Okay, Councillor O'Neill.
Yeah, through the chair, Cam. Page 55, 3.2.1. I get the second part of that the property owner is responsible for constructing and maintaining the driveway from the curb to the channel line and the property boundary. That makes sense. I am struggling to comprehend how we can, for roads with curb and channel, the property owner is responsible for providing access across the curb and channel.
Yep.
Wouldn't that be council providing the access over the curb and channel? Because we do the curb and channel.
Yep. It's probably just how that's worded. What it's implying is, let's say you've got a curb and channel in place and you want to put an access, or the resident wants to put an access at that location. What it's trying to say is, as part of the work, the standard drawing says you cut the curb and you put your new driveway in. It's just saying that they're responsible for that piece that goes across the curb and channel, if that makes sense, the access across the curb and channel.
How are they responsible for it though?
Just when they install, like when they construct it.
As in they're responsible, as in
To do the driveway.
driveway right from the.
so that's the second part of it.
Yep.
But the first part says the property owner is responsible for providing access across the curb and channel.
Yeah, so it's like a background statement saying that if you want to get from the road to your property, it's providing it. But I can reword that, like for the fact that you're asking questions on it, says that there's a different interpretation. So I'm more than happy to reword what that's saying. All I was probably trying to say is, if you want to get a car from the road to the property boundary, that's the piece that you need to maintain, which is the second dot point.
The second part of it, not the first.
My understanding has always been that the resident or the person doing it is responsible to replace the gutter. That's happening right now in Rome at this point in time on a
Never used to do that, I think. Years ago, historically, I thought.
piece of guttering in a new development in Rome and Quinton Street. In the DA, they have to replace all the old driveways to curbing and channeling. ones that aren't being used for driveway have to be replaced to curb and channel.
Yeah, so I understand that as a condition of a development.
Yeah.
But if, let's say, property owner A, something happens to their driveway and they contact council, that, you know, it's broken, it's cracked over time, whatever, that should be on council to fix that, not on the resident. But this, when you read this, it does imply if you are the one responsible for providing access over the curb and channel, the responsibility sits with the property owner.
That's the way my interpretation been ever since I've been, before I came to council. You're responsible for that.
It's
I don't know if that's,
but that is a council asset. That isn't the property owner's asset. I get the bit from once the curb and channel is, once you cross that to across the footpath and into the property, that's on the resident.
that's a council asset too.
Yeah, I
And I'm not being, so I'm not saying I'm right, but it's always been the interpretation that I've known, is the person or business or whatever using that is responsible for that piece of.
I think that there is another thing that will come probably from the directors, because we've had situations like you do a DA, normally people, especially a commercial DA, they normally factor that into the job, but on others, like local residents might have an issue and they can't fix their driveway, so there might be, like, and as the deputy director said, directors might bring it to council about individual issues, or do we do a policy? We talked about it for maybe some of the small towns where we give them some material for their driveway, so it's not really channeling curbing, but it's just, there might have to be some flexibility to this, but I imagine this is a general policy, but anyone not happy can escalate it to council, so to keep it moving, could we actually approve it subject to minor changes for the CEO to do? And
Can I,
yeah,
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question, like, which is good? That's always been in the policy,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah,
That's what I
it's
thought.
It's not a
yeah.
piece of change. I think where the confusion might be coming in is like a driveway, a full concrete driveway from essentially the edge of the bitumen right through to the property boundary.
Yeah.
The curb's not separate; it's actually built into the driveway itself. So like that's where it's not really part of the curb and channel
Yeah.
anymore. It's actually the driveway. But you do have driveways where the curb's just been cut out, and then you got your gravel or your bitumen, which could be this. So I can see how that statement is slightly, but I get I can understand. It wouldn't take much to fix that. It's always been like that, the property thing, but it could be just where it's not built into the driveway and it's a continuation of the curb. It probably better sits with council to look after that piece of curb, because you probably don't want residents starting to cut and muck around with the curb. But
So we
where
could
it's
just add a line in relation to that.
Definitely.
Words to that effect.
Yeah, I could definitely clarify that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you start sort of, let's say someone cuts the curb out and builds a concrete driveway,
Yep.
stamps it with beautiful concrete, and then we're responsible just for the curb and channel piece. So that does get
Yeah.
quite messy.
But that would be the minority to what we've got.
Yeah,
Most of it is the cut in
Yep.
and gravel.
Yeah, no, it's a good
I
decision.
know there are exceptions
Yeah,
to
that's
that,
what-
your point, but and then I can tell you there was a customer request came forward at one of the mobile offices that we held in June, where this exact matter was raised, that council had changed the access.
Yeah, didn't give them a proper.
It didn't give the driveway, and it wasn't their primary driveway. Council fixed that. They cut it back. That wasn't on the property owner. That was council. So, Mayor, I'm of the view that curb and channel is on council. Thereafter, into the property is the property owner, because we don't want residents out there fixing it themselves. I mean, it's got to be a particular standard.
well, that's what it says in here, that's right, but it clearly says it's got to be done to the standard, but,
Yeah.
but I mean, I'm not
it's
against changing it, but.
It is common practice in councils that this is actually passed back to the to the property owner, and that any adjustments have to be in accordance with council specs,
Policy,
and the
yeah.
obligation is back on them.
Yeah.
So the policy is not unlike any other council's policy would be. It's just about whether we can qualify it a bit further.
See, if
Yeah, I
we
think it's
don't-
good. It's
You're right.
definitely a good discussion. Sorry, Councillor Burke,
Right.
but yeah, it's a good discussion
Yeah.
because this is an area that we just need. We need some clarity so that we can document it accordingly. So I think I think that's where I think probably this has been written on the basis of, in most of these policies, on the basis of like just a full-blown concrete, perfect engineered solution. That's not what we've got out there in practice. There's a lot of different iterations of it,
Yeah.
which we just need to clarify. So.
Because in theory, you know how we've been talking about the need to continue to do curb and channeling across the region. If you apply this out, we should be sending a bill to every resident where it crosses, that curb and channel crosses their driveway, to say this is the bit that's on you and the rest is on council. We're not doing that. Well, I hope we're not.
No.
No, no.
So-
And no council does. So, look, what we're talking about is having a relatively standard policy here from a council perspective. But if we can qualify that, where where the curb and channeling, where it doesn't form part of the curb and channeling, but to remove it completely is actually quite problematic in the way we actually manage access. Especially in urban areas.
Councillor Burke.
Yeah, I just think if we don't take full control of the driveways, besides getting butchered jobs and that, people will just start putting pipes in or timber,
They do that.
But they
and then that's going to
That's exactly
block
what
up
they do.
stormwater and everything. So,
Yeah.
especially if the people don't look after it. So, I think if we take full control of it all, we know it's going to be.
Well, you've got to be careful, but because you got DAs and that.
Yeah,
like,
but
you've
when they've got a
to-
DA, that they've got to answer to it.
Yeah.
They've got to tick the
The
boxes.
application.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
they-
different to say, on a Saturday morning, think, I might just cut my own driveway and to get out there with the.
The only thing I think the policy needs is just a little bit more clarity, but be careful because then you take full responsibility
Yeah.
for it. And a lot of people solve things themselves. I don't see anyone, I haven't heard of too many times, well, even at Injune, they actually asked council to come back and fix the gutters and they must have cut the concrete down. They didn't do
did.
it themselves.
No, they didn't.
No, so
Council did that.
Yeah.
but the bigger issue here, we don't want to make a seismic change that could affect DAs because in the DA they're responsible for the driveway. If we say we own a bit of it or we take control of it, and I understand the bit about just channeling curbing those driveways and the rest is gravel, but we just got to be careful we don't. And this was just brought up as a change in the policy. Why don't we get some more advice if you're worried about it?
I'll move we lay this on the table to a future ordinary meeting of council.
Okay, all those in favour?
And I should
Yes.
say, this should circle back through a briefing, ideally, so that we can have a much more longer discussion about it.
Righto, so we'll vote on that. All those to go lay it on the table to a briefing and come back to council.
Can we get examples on that too, Ken? Like, just a few different ways.
There's plenty of problems.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cam.
Okay.
Did you call that, Mr Mayor?
Yeah.
7-0.
No.
Okay, 12.3, external request for temporary road closure policy. Deputy Director, is there very simple differences in this one? Or?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. It's very similar. They haven't added any major sections, just updated it again with the local area model. Like most of our road policies, we're just centrally. So this is, if you get requests for road closures, making sure that consultation with the local area directors. We've also just added an extra section when we're considering temporary road closures. Applicants generally say that it's right to, we've notified all the residents, but some of these through roads like Wallumbilla North, Yorba to Room Road, very difficult to notify all the impacted residents. So it just builds a bit more power for council to say, sorry, you can't do a full closure because we're not confident that you're able to communicate and the impact of the closure. So, but this doesn't affect the closures that we do or work with community groups. This is essentially CSG companies wanting to close council roads to do pressure testing. It's just been in place for a fair few years now. 2017 it's been in place and it's been working well. So it's just we've just had some learnings that I'd like to strengthen just around that. So.
Any questions? Councillor Hancock.
Cam, does this policy, I know you said it doesn't affect community groups, but this would be the policy that would still have to adhere to when they want to do Anzac Day or close the road for a Christmas party or whatever. This is still the policy it would come under?
Yeah, it's still, but it wouldn't have a major impact on it. I have noted in there that it's generally councils working with community groups to do them road closures. The big thing, if it was more than 12 hours continuous, which is unlikely for these sort of events, that's when it really starts to trigger. It's got to come to council because it's starting to be more than continuous. So you're right, it does, but it would normally be, yes, it's inside the policy and that.
So my second question is, with those requirements where community groups need the roads to be closed, the feedback I've had from community groups is now we used to be able to have someone in council who would help assist doing those applications. It's being outsourced from council now. We don't have anybody on council who can do that. Is that correct?
So council's got one traffic management designer. There's a lot more regulation in doing traffic control plans now. Where it comes down to is there's traffic control companies now that can do a traffic management plan for $250 because that's just what they do. They just churn it out in bulk. For us to have an officer sit down that looks after projects to sit down and do it, it's actually quite unproductive and probably costs us 3 times the value. So I sort of look at it and say, if someone else is doing it and churning it out like economically, that's the better way. So in that instance, the same process can still happen, and council just be as a conduit to the person preparing that plan. Like, it's not, sorry, we can't help anymore. It's just, this is how we go about it. Because the one person that's TMD's their project manager, they do traffic management plans, but if they did all the traffic management plans for council, they'd probably sit for half their work doing traffic management plans. So
we definitely can still be assisting those community groups because traffic management plans are so daunting for community volunteers.
Absolutely.
And I've just heard sort of that council doesn't do that anymore and we've got to get it somewhere else, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's probably just
that's not being supported. Yeah,
it's probably just a change of language there. That we can still do them, and it's daunting for some of us sometimes. Trying to prepare a traffic management plan, so I could only imagine what it would be like for community groups. But we've got contacts with many traffic control companies, and we just ring up and say, Black Toyota, for example, I want to close that footpath. Here's where the vehicle's going to park. Can you draw me it up? And within half a day, I've got a traffic plan back for a very cheap rate.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
So, Councillor Hancock, was it that council didn't help them anymore, or they get someone else to do it? Like, did they ask them to look after it themselves, or did they?
So the community's just felt a bit of pushback on the fact that council no longer does the traffic plans anymore, and they'll have to go and pay for it somewhere else. And so I guess it's a bit of a change up in that used to be an in-kind thing that council would give community groups.
It should still be an in-kind
thing. Now they've got to be able to find the funds to be able to pay.
Righto.
For a traffic management plan to be done.
Is it expensive?
Outside of council. Well, $250, that surprised me because I heard that it was a bit more expensive than that, but I'm not going to be quoted on that.
Is it just for the plan or to have them enact the plan?
No, to actually draw the plan up.
Most of these companies do it in bulk. They'll actually.
I think
very efficient, actually, and very fast.
Easier way to do it, and I wish we would have had different coppers back when we wanted to close the street off in 2018, when we had to walk up the footpath because it was going to cost $3,000 or $4,000. If different police were at the time, they would have just did it. The Anzac Day would have had one copper out there slowing them down, walk through. Would have been business as usual, no money at all. And it just depends on who
that's
on, but it's so much less stress on community members. And I wouldn't have walked out of a couple of meetings prior to that if that was the case.
And that still happens in some communities through the region now, but then it is just those ones where we're going to have to close roads, and it happens quite often. Like, there's so many around the regions that this happens, and so it's just trying to the council can still be able to support that as an in-kind.
Just recognising there's probably two costs here. One of the plan, which is really quite cheap, and there's also people doing the traffic management. That's a different. That's a.
Oh, two different things. That's right. I'm just talking about the plan.
Yep.
Yeah. So that, in my opinion, that should just be part of in-kind assistance we offer if we're offering that. So I would encourage community groups to ask for that as part of their in-kind assistance, because you wouldn't want community members doing those plans, because that would be a nightmare.
Yeah. They can.
And even I guess that support from council, like, you know, if they go straight to the traffic and they get that back, it would be nice to have somebody in council to run their eye over that to go, is that what, you know, are we ticking the boxes, is it right? Because the average community person would go, well, it's a shame it is, but I'm not sure. So
Council provided a lot of assistance with Eastern Country this time because they tried to do it, and it was the plans had detours everywhere through town. It was a nightmare.
Yeah.
So we sort of grabbed
we
the
did that
plans.
for
And
sculptures
so
out back.
it's working. It probably just needs a slight change, and it's still a service that's provided. It's just whether it's in-house or external.
Yeah.
yeah, it's just how council gets that service done and the most efficient way for them to do it. And that's just good for us to know, because we can obviously promote that to community to still, you know, reach out to council. Thank you.
Righto, do we have a mover on this one? I'll move it. That council, 1, adopt the revised external request for temporary road closures policy as presented. 2, confirm the version replaces all previous versions of the external request for temporary road closure policy and remove any versions from the website and policy register. 3, update the website and policy register with the revised policy. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Hancock. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0.
I just said.
Right,
Thank you very much.
there you are.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're on 13.1, V-Gate Lane, Mitchell Memorial and signage requests. Councillor Burkett.
Yeah, I've got a declaration. Item 13.1, description, V-Gate Lane, Mitchell Memorial and signage request. Declaring council myself, the person with interest, related parties, my father, Gary Burkett. Particular with interest, I have a conflict with my father as the president of the Mitchell Rotary Club, and the club is mentioned in the report. The type of conflict is declarable conflict of interest, and the action I take was leave the room while the matter is discussed and voted on.
Okay, 13.1, V-Gate Lane Memorial and signage. Councillor McMullen.
Mayor, I'll move that council approve the request for the Rotary Club of Mitchell to install a concrete footings with a picnic table at the V-Gate Lane Memorial site, and additionally install signage to direct people to the memorial site. The Rotary Club of Mitchell liaise with the council building and planning team to ensure that the correct approvals are sought prior to commencement of the project.
We have a seconder. Councillor Guthrie. Any?
I've got a
Please
question.
go ahead, Councillor Hancock.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Audio Jane. Just double checking, can you just explain to me, I see that in this funding body is the Rotary Club of Mitchell, but then the financial year budget, the costing is $200 for the tourism signage?
So the Rotary Club of, sorry, Councillor Hancock, the Rotary Club of Mitchell are wanting to pay for all the cement slab and everything themselves, and the picnic table,
Yeah.
and all they're asking of us is the signage cost.
Signage to point people in that direction.
That's correct, just on the road, just on the actual Bolland turn off and the St George Road turn off.
Yeah, so we're going to do the signage and the installation of that signage.
And the installation, correct.
Like road
But we actually
signs.
don't need to, because it's actually an existing, that's correct,
Yeah,
it's
right.
actually,
You just
it's
use
just
the
going
same.
to be on the
On already.
existing sign.
Just put a
yes.
new fingerboard
Just
or
a
whatever
little
says it.
fingerboard.
Yeah.
Correct, but the Rotary Club of Mitchell would like to pay for the concrete slab themselves and have Work Camp assist them to install that.
So just a suggestion with the recommendation is, with the recommendation it just says about approve the request from the Rotary Club of Mitchell to install the concrete footings and the picnic tables. It doesn't actually say that council, it doesn't actually say about the tourism signage for the $200. Oh,
That's number 3.
Just on the screen.
break,
sorry.
break the motion down.
Is there a new one?
Oh, sorry.
Is this a new one?
I-
Just put a
Oh,
Yes, I think that we need to have a number 3 to actually install well, it's not install the signage, it's to
purchase the
signage.
and I guess install the fingerboard onto the sign.
Okay.
So it's really council signage, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, what do you
Yes.
call
Supply
it?
and purchase and-
signage.
Purchase and install
okay, well, I'll
signage.
start again.
Is that
Right.
correct?
Yes, thank you, that's
Yeah.
correct, thank you.
I'll start the council one, approve the request for the Rotary Club of Mitchell to install concrete footings for the picnic table at the V-Gate Lane Memorial Site. 2, requires the Rotary Club of Mitchell to liaise with the council building and planning team to ensure the correct approvals are sought prior to commencement of the project. And 3, purchase and install signage to direct people to the memorial site with funds drawn from local development budget WO 14827.2539.2001.
And do we have to put the amount of money, purchase and install signage up to $200?
Through the chair, I think you've got existing budget that you can
Yes,
allocate
thank
that. So what we're anticipating is spending existing budget on that.
Okay.
It'd just be maintenance costs, wouldn't it?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, materials and
Yeah.
services.
Well, it's a new sign, isn't it?
But it's a new sign.
Yeah, it's not an asset though.
Councillor McMullen, do you think in 3 you should just put council signage? Like
Direct
so,
or directional signing.
like
signage, yeah.
just, something to say it's road sign. It's not,
Yeah.
we're not putting up a
Yeah.
I think
hoarding sign on the side
Yeah.
of the road.
Oh, what?
What do you call
Point
that?
of
Yeah,
interest.
just call it.
Just
Yeah, road sign.
That's what it says there. That
Just road signage then, through the chair. To direct people that way,
Okay.
you know it's a finger sign.
purchase and install road signage to direct people to the memorial site with funds drawn from local development budget WO 14827.2539.2001.
Is the second
I'm happy with that. Yep.
Okay, does the member wish to speak to the motion?
I'd just like to thank the Mitchell Rotary Club for taking the initiative to fund this project.
Good idea.
Does anyone else wish to speak? I'll speak. I too would like to thank the members of the Rotary Club of Mitchell for actually basically keeping this alive about the history of the V-Gate and what it's meant in the past, and keeping that history alive to the future generations, and as well subsidising the construction of it. So yeah, it's a great initiative from local people and Rotary of Mitchell. Does anyone else wish to speak? Does the mover wish to sum up?
No, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
6-0.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Ask the councillor to come back in, please.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
13.2, request for lease extension on Air Services Australia. Did you want to just give a quick overview of what is sort of driving this?
Yeah, sure. So this is when you first drive into the airport, the big non-directional beacon, the big antenna, and the satellite house there. It's due for renewal, so I think at the moment it's a 10-year peppercorn lease, and that's due to run out next year. They've asked for us to renew it. Initially it was for another 10 years. The reason I've come back with 5 and a 5-year option is in the medium term we'd like to look at developing precincts, master planning. We're not quite there yet, so I'm not quite sure whether that that space there would need to be used by us in the long term. So I went back to Air Services and offered them 5 plus 5. They said that's fine, as long as we give them, I think I've written there 2 years notice, which will give them plenty of time to move it as they need to. The NDB infrastructure, which is the big antenna, they're expecting to be obsolete in the next 5 years anyway. It's just the GPS satellite infrastructure that we'd need to, but that doesn't take up as much, so we could work around that.
Righto, we have a mover, Councillor O'Neill.
I'll move the council one, offer Air Services Australia a 5-year lease with 5-year option with the same terms as the existing lease and include additional clauses as written in the report. 2, authorise the CEO or delegate to negotiate the final terms.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor McMullen, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0. Thank you. Page 81, annual, 14.1, annual membership of Toowoomba and Surat Basin Enterprises, Tisby. Do we have a mover? Councillor Hancock.
I move that Council 1 acknowledge the membership contribution of $20,000 ex GST to Tisby as part of the 23-24 budget. 2, authorise the CEO or delegate to sign the agreement, and 3, notify Tisby accordingly.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor O'Neill. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0. (14.2) Bassett Park User Agreement Renewal, Maranoa Netball Association. Good morning. So do we...
Got a question.
Please go ahead.
Leah, on page 101 with the map, I can see obviously the netball courts, but it just didn't stand out for me anywhere exactly the area in which the user agreement is for, because we know that they do have the temporary grass netball courts as well. Is that, have I missed it? Is it captured in the user agreement?
Through the chair, the grassed area is normally the camping area, so it's not exclusively for the netball club to use. It is referenced on the last page, proposed responsibilities.
What page, sorry?
The last page of the agreement.
Just haven't locked it in.
99.
Sorry,
Haven't locked it in stone because it's very important to, you know, to the show and that, so no one owns it, sort of thing.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
Where is it?
It's the
there?
page
Sorry.
after the map, I think it is, the page after the
In the table.
there's a list of, there's a table there
There's
with
a
proposed
table.
responsibilities. And it's about,
Oh, the watering of the grassed area?
yes, it doesn't reference that as being,
But it could easily be added anyway.
yes.
Because
Well-
the reason I raise it, and that by no means am I suggesting that there should be exclusive rights.
I just think to take any ambiguity out of the user agreements for the netball courts and the user agreement that we have with the Show Society, that we do embed it in there, because I know there was some questions leading into this year's show, and just so all parties, including council, as a stakeholder, were all very clear that they can use it as netball courts, but in the weeks leading up to the Roma show and over the Roma show, there will be camping and cattle trucks over that area, and we just don't have it.
We all talk about it, and there's
There's a resolution on the books from our last Mitchell meeting that I moved, and or Councillor McMullen moved my second, I can't remember, but we made it very clear what council's intent was, and that is the only decision that we can go back to illustrate council's formed of view.
So it says in here, the week of the annual Rome
But it's
show
not just-
games are not to be scheduled for Thursday, Friday or Saturday or show, to show days.
So that's on the actual hard stand netball courts. It is in the weeks leading up that we know that there is going to be activity, camping, whatever, over the top of the grass netball courts. Because there was concern that all the work that was going into it by staff was going to be undone by having truck. Well, the only way that we got the support of the Roma Show Society to put the netball courts there was that area will continue to be for camping and for the cattle trucks, and we negotiated that the change from the cattle dog arena to the sheepdog arena so that any flow on camping can happen down there. We all know that, sitting at this table. We may not all sit here into the future, so I just think it needs to be embedded in the user agreement so that all of those community groups that have interest in this area are clear.
Is it because this user agreement is over those number? Is it that the area that the grass courts sit on is by request?
Well, that's chair.
And through the chair, the evolution of the grass courts is actually 2 requests over 2 years. It's actually, and just be careful that you're not, whilst you might want to embed some wording in the current user agreement, is that you shouldn't be using words like exclusive. It shouldn't be just about the Roma show. It is a space not allocated for netball, and the last 2 seasons have been, we'd like this additional space because of we're running a state level carnival and we need more courts. Be careful, is that just as Councillor Hancock's raising, is that just a request and a discretionary access, or is it, saying no, every, for X number of months you can actually use, if this becomes part of your user agreement. So I'd just be careful about that, because it's a responsive process, and while you'd like to see the festival happen every year, as far as I know, it's just a requested process.
I wasn't talking about having it embedded in there that it would be exclusive.
No, just be
it's
careful
that all
about the wording.
stakeholders are clear that the primary use of that particular area has and always will be for camping with major events, and it's just not the show, it's the Easter and the country as the
That's what I
well.
was thinking.
But if the policy only covers the fenced in part,
This user agreement, that's what it looks to me to just be the...
and that's, if it's just show, correct me if I'm wrong, but if the current policy just includes what's inside that fence, they have no say over outside.
That's right. But do you want it, what kind of wording?
Unless they ask permission.
That's right, but
no exclusive.
I'm just wondering, because that's where my thought went straight away, is, do you know what, this is a policy, it's just over the netball courts, and the grass courts are just for a request only, and I still think that, but I actually do wonder, it is still a request, but they're still using it, and so it would be good, so they therefore, are we leaving ourselves open that we actually don't have a user agreement over the use of those netball courts, the grass netball courts as well?
It's not just the use of it, our staff are maintaining them
to a high level,
on the basis that they will be used for netball, and that's fine, and we should support that.
Yeah.
But not to the detriment of the other users that have to use that area as well. And my point is again, we all know that, and we've discussed it over 2 terms for you and I, the Deputy Mayor and the Mayor, but for the rest of us 1 term. It may all change next year, but it shouldn't be a concern for the stakeholders who's sitting here. They have, it should be clear to them what the approach is and the use and when and where, and not to the detriment, and we don't get a phone call from Easter in the country or the show saying, well, the netball courts are there, we can't use it. Well, that's not true,
Is it just acknowledging coming up with some wording in the policy that we're acknowledging that the grass courts area of the facility is a shared use area?
Well,
that's
maybe we're just acknowledging that it is a shared use area for all users.
Yeah, not just in this user agreement, it would be in the others.
Because I would imagine that if a community group,
Or the
whatever,
dog trialers
wants to go and, I don't know, do something else, and they could come to council and say, hey, I'd like to use that area of the facility.
I think that's...
So it's just acknowledging that the grass courts are a shared use area.
I think
by
that's why we
request.
need to start looking at, that's what we did talk about, if we ever bought more Easter there, that triangular one, so the trucks and stuff could park space for them.
So do
So
we
they're
lay
not
this
on
on the
their courts?
table and for wording to come back? Is there a time
Or
period?
would the council be happy for us to notation and include that into the agreement as part of this
Yeah.
deliberation?
And the others as well,
And
because
each time they're updated, all the other again.
it's the timing thing. This isn't a concern when camping or Roma Cup happens, because netball's over. It's the fact that there was work happening to this site in the lead up to the carnival, which was in June or July, and of course 2 major events happened prior to that. Yeah.
I think we've got to be very careful saying it's the grass netball courts. I think would be better if we actually said it's temporary. It's temporary use. It's actually just part of the camping grounds. It's just part of the grounds that we've used for that, because if we put the courts in there, then they go, oh, now it's the courts. Whereas you've got to keep it temporary.
But Councillor Hancock said it's shared use of the grass
So
area.
we'll make
grass.
shared use of the grass.
Yeah.
If you want to say camping section or whatever, but shared use of the grass
Adjacent to the
area.
courts.
Or something about like that, and don't name it anything for anybody.
No, that's
really,
right.
it's just a shared
But
use of the
couldn't you
grass
put a name
area.
on it, like say section C of the master plan,
Yeah,
like
that's
of the
right.
plan,
Put it
like,
on the map or something.
so everyone knows.
Oh, just the adjacent
But
grassed
adjacent to
area.
the adjacent to the netball courts is not
Yeah.
saying it's netball courts. It's just saying it's in the geographical
that's
area
better,
near.
right?
Like it's
That's
just that shit. Anyway, do you need to do that and then bring it back to council? Does this have to be passed today? Because we've got a meeting next week.
We can lay it on the table.
Well, the other question is, we're here all day. Do you want to go away and do it and come back? If
Later
it's
on the,
just wording?
later on the,
It's
Later in the
council.
meeting.
I move that we lay it on the table till later in the meeting.
All those in favour?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. 7-0. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
thank you.
Seventeen point one, positive council relations. I'd like to move that a report be prepared for an upcoming council meeting about the ways in which we can achieve closer relations with our traditional owners and other community stakeholders,
Only groups,
community stakeholders, including that a meeting be held twice a year, scheduled in May and November of each year.
Mr. Mayor, just a question.
Yep, sure.
Did this get triggered by something?
I think that looking at what the future will be, and for the efficient operation of council, I think we should have closer relations, and I think it'll be beneficial for how council operates in a few areas. One of them would be roads. So I think then having a couple of meetings with our traditional groups and getting on the page they're raising their issues, it will be more efficient for council operations, especially roads. Probably leave it at that. I think it would be.
And at what level? Sorry, but I'm just thinking the one we went to a couple of years ago.
It could be.
Yeah, on-
It could be an operational meeting. It could be at the CEO's level
Yeah.
or the staff. I'm not talking about necessarily us doing that.
Yeah, no,
I've
sorry.
got no problem. But there's a lot of benefit when you have a close relationship, when you want to do a lot of road stuff. Yeah. Councillor Hancock.
Just wondering why you're being so specific in the recommendation to actually have to have these in May and November. Like, why not let that? Why don't you let that
well,
come back in the report and what the workers work out?
I don't. Well, to me, twice a year is a chance to look at it. Obviously, before budget, we can consider it in May in case there's anything that we need to look at in budget, and then it's also, are we delivering on the things that we talked about we were going to do last year? Like, if we only have one meeting a year, sometimes things can fall to the wayside. But the idea is if there was things that the traditional groups wanted us to work on, but we also might have some things that we'd like them to work on as well. So it's twice a year. I don't mind if it's a different time. I was just thinking, when are you normally? April, you can do April, but May.
Would you then just change it to stakeholders, including frequency of meeting? Leave it to the report to actually
Flesh out.
flesh that rather than being prescriptive.
Yeah, well, I don't mind as long as it's 2 meetings a year, so.
We'll just do full stop after that, because I just think that's, that might not work for,
I think it'd be good, like even for tourism stuff, I know locally here, that needs to be helped out.
Yeah.
Both because it's getting neglected, so I think that part of it too.
and part of that report I'd like to see is what we're already doing in this space, because I'm assuming that we are, I would have assumed that we are working together with lots of community groups, like all of our community groups in the town. So I'd like to know what we're already doing in this
But
space.
yeah, roads it is unique to roads and quarries and stuff. That part of it, definitely different to the other group that I take on board. You're saying.
So this is just traditional owner groups that we've got in the region. We could do it and put another motion in there if you want to see about other things, but this is just getting it on the calendar that we do it and we catch up, because it can easily get.
I'm happy to second it, Mr. Mayor.
Righto.
Mr Mayor, can I just ask a question too?
Sure.
So where a report be prepared for an upcoming meeting about the ways, is that memorandum of understanding, or is that the structure of the meetings, or is that the structure of the composition of the group? I'm just trying to get my head around what does the ways mean?
Basically, we normally get a report back and say this is how it's going to work. That's what it's basically going to be.
And through the chair, you do have in your corporate plan a reconciliation action plan over the next 5 years, and again, potentially there may be a number of aspects of this motion that could be addressed in that report.
Righto. Does anyone wish to speak to it? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0. 17.2, Sayards Logistics, Councillor
Mr. Mayor, I
McMullen.
have a question. Would you be withdrawing this after our meeting yesterday and all this has been attended to?
I have a conflict.
Oh, sorry, I didn't.
Councillor Hancock.
I'd like to declare a conflict of interest on item 17.2, description sale yards logistics. Declaring councillor as Councillor Joanne Hancock. Person with interest is GL and JM Hancock, my husband and self. Sorry, Cal, could I please also add, and H5H Transport Trust?
Sorry,
H5H Transport Trust. Particulars of interest, we own a transport business and are occasional users of the loadout facility. Type of conflict is a declarable conflict of interest, and the action I'll take is I'll leave the room while the matter is being discussed and voted on.
Councillor Hancock's left the room. Just to answer your question, I don't believe, like yesterday, there wasn't all councillors there. There was some information passed on, but this is actually about finding out what we're going to do and some future issues to do with how do we actively have a warning system if we've got long delays at the sale yards.
Mr. Mayor, we have the system in place and it's been enacted. We were told yesterday, I think it's, in my opinion, why do we employ a general manager if we're going to undermine his authority?
And I think the apology thing, I think that was done.
Yeah.
That was done as well.
We were told yesterday they've already had an official breach over that, the contractor been breached.
But all councillors haven't been told about
No, but I don't think we need to put half that in there, because that could get them offside for something that's been dealt with.
Mr Mayor, can I suggest we lay this on the table pending the manager's, because he's drawing up a report to bring to council anyway, he said. So maybe, it just seems if we wait for him to come and bring it proactively, it may be that this is actually then surplus.
Yeah, a lot of it will be sorted out.
And maybe if there's something more that needs to be followed up, we do.
Righto, we'll lay it on the table. Are you moving that, councillor?
I'm happy to lay this on the table. Yep.
Righto, all those in favour?
To a future meeting?
Yes.
6-0.
To a future meeting if needed, because it may be that, if required.
Well, we've already
Yeah.
moved on, lay it on the table to a future meeting. Do you want us to re-vote on it?
No, I'm fine, because it'll determine, we'll know whether or not there will be need for further investigation.
a matter that is laid on the table has to come back to a future meeting.
Yeah.
Mm,
And
that's
the
all right,
paper
yeah.
is present for.
Yeah.
Okay,
You gotta get to,
so,
Oh, good.
you're younger than me.
Yeah.
I know, it doesn't look like How do you say this, Jeff?
Yinga Bay.
Yinga Bay.
Councillor Hancock not there.
She's just ducked down the hall.
Okay, we'll just adjourn for a minute. 17.3, Yinga Bay Bore. I think we're up to. Is that correct?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just got to get my...
Page 106.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that a report be prepared for the ordinary meeting of the 8th of November listing all primary stock root bores relying on windmills to pump water, along with the costings and strategy to equip solar power to these bores as required.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Burkett,
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Councillor
Oh.
Hancock.
Councillor McMullen, just checking, because I see you've changed the
Yeah.
resolution, which I'm fine, it's great, I'm fine. The heading is Yinga Bay Bore, but now the report you're requesting is about all bores. But is
after
there
this-
anything?
After this went to, I put the report to staff, it came back to me through email that council have actually obtained the funding for that board, came out the other day. So I thought, well, not much point putting it that way, so I just changed it. Because in the other resolution I had was to do what I've done as well, if you know.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, no worries, I just was,
My,
so it was sort of.
I would like to see us start pushing that. Oh, can I speak to it yet, Mr. Mayor?
Oh, sure.
If there's no more questions, you can.
Yeah, I'd just like to see council start pushing these bores, the conversion of these bores, because I think it's only going to be a matter of time when we have the full ownership of this, and I just thought we can start seeking government funding and that to get them converted.
Bit of old history going and pulling balls.
Well,
Yeah, I'll speak to this. I'll support this. One of the big things I think we need to solve is the security issues about panels and things being stolen. So I think it needs to be at the same time with the security of how to be ahead of the people that will come in and steal things. We've had a fair bit of stuff stolen in the past, and if we're going to solar, we need to also make sure that we have a way to counteract that covertly, that we can catch who does it if they want to take items. Does anyone else wish to speak?
Mr. Mayor, just noting that Cal has changed the subject heading to primary stock root bores, and I actually do think that that's probably more appropriate. And so, can we change the heading of the report?
You would have to move something, wouldn't you? CEO?
Yeah, look, through the chair, the published agenda is Yinga Bay Bore. I don't think it actually affects the report, because it is the councillor's report and it's already published. So no, don't go back in and change it. Whilst it does make more sense to all of us, the reality is that is the published document, and just keep that the same. If you need to make any additional comment, my recommendation would be just include it in the resolution in some way if you want to do that.
Just as
And it might be as simple as
per
that,
Yinga Bay.
acknowledge, or that a report be paid for.
I guess
All
seeing
primary-
I spoke to, I could probably say, put it officially in there that the Yinga Bay funding has been, would be .2, I suppose, that funding,
Acknowledge that.
acknowledge that funding has already been received for the
Yeah.
Yinga Bay bore, the upgrade to the Yinga Bay bore.
Ties it in. I'm happy with that.
Mr. Mayor, I understand what you say about security. I just note, I pulled in, the other day when I came up to the new one between Muckadilla and Amby, and I see it's got a 6-foot fence around the solar panels and everything, yeah.
But the only problem is that's only a cordless grinder, and they can cut that out. But if we have covert cameras that are watching cameras, then we we can actually catch people, and then generally it stops. So, you know. Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? Does the mover wish to sum up?
No, thanks, Mr Mayor.
We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 6-0. Righto. 17.4 Southwest Drag Association request. Councillor Guthrie.
Mr Mayor, this particular agenda item was brought forward by Councillor Ladbroke, but in his absence, I'd like to move on his behalf, please.
Please go ahead.
I'd like to move that a report with costings be prepared for an upcoming council meeting.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Burkett. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak?
I'll just ask a question.
Please go ahead.
I've got no problem with the report coming back. Just in the details of the requested agenda report, it makes reference to that the financial assistance is happy to pay back these monies over time. With this report, can we capture whether that is in fact at all possible?
Yeah, sure.
Loan arrangements aren't generally the business of council, so I just, you know, we should be looking at grants and other ways to assist this. So I just want to make sure that's captured.
Sure,
yeah.
Okay. Does the mover wish to speak?
Yeah, on behalf of Councillor Ladbroke, I'm just, as we read the information and the letter that was sent to schools, they're focusing on Easter, now being only 8 months away, and knowing that there's a lot of work to be done. So I'd just like to acknowledge the fact that they are thinking in terms of not 2023 but 2024, and trying to then backward map to know what needs to be done and to seek help or to reach out when they are obviously very aware it may be just a little bit ambitious for them at this particular point in time with finances. And so I'm pleased that they're reaching out to the council, because obviously this is a big draw card for Easter in the country.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? I'll speak. Yeah, I do believe that council can provide assistance. I'd like to see the report come back. You know, we've probably all heard about some of the bumps in the track out there, and I think Deputy Director was talking about someone that specialised in smaller jobs that can do some of this. I do think that is something that council could provide a good result, and I'll look forward to getting this result back. I do note that they have taken on a junior bikes, which I think will be very important to have a flat track for, so I certainly think it's crucial, and there's a lot of economic development brought in by the drags to the Maranoa. Does the mover wish to sum up?
No, thank you.
We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 6-0. Okay. L1, material change of use, extractive industry. I move that this lay on the table till a next meeting to receive information on how we can condition more impacts to do with this material change of use.
You mean the next meeting is in next week or to a future council meeting?
Oh, well, I'm happy to put future, because I don't know if they could do it.
Yeah, it's
but,
a bit tight.
yeah.
It's a lay on the table.
Just through the chair, the manager of planning has actually articulated some comments in relation, some clauses in relation to potential adjustment of the conditions should council so wish. So we may be indeed ready for the 20th.
I think it's your future meeting.
Future, then it's either way.
Yeah, either way. Yeah.
Okay, and I wonder if we should have a briefing on it.
Yes.
Just
So
That's scheduled. Have we got that next week?
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes.
late to a future meet. Following a briefing. After following a briefing. Lay on the table till a future meeting, receive info on how we can condition more impacts associated with the material change you use following a briefing. All those in favour? 6-0. Okay, so I move that L2 lay on the table till later in the meeting. All those in favour?
Can I speak?
Yep, please go ahead.
Mr Mayor, I actually am going to support that we lay this on the table so that Councillor Edwards can be back for this report, because I think we should be able to do that, to support councillors being at the table. But I just want to note that the last time we did this and I moved to lay it on the table for another councillor, council denied this. And so,
Right.
but I want to support this because I think this is exactly what we should be able to do.
Okay, so I didn't know we were speaking about that, but anyway, you've said that. All those in favour of laying it on the table? 6-0. Okay, righto. L3, we're on to page 134.
Just through the chair, I realise that you passed the procedure motion to lay it on the table. Is there any reason? Could I understand exactly, are we just
No, no.
giving more time
So
to
that
read?
Councillor
Councillor
Edwards.
Edwards can be back.
Fantastic, that's okay, thank you.
Yeah, so page 134, let's find this. I would like to move the council, so did I say the title?
No.
L3, proposed community barbecue / fire pit event with live entertainment. I'd like to move that council sponsor and organise a community barbecue fire pit event on 14th of October for 22 Grow rural cohorts and 6 Health Workforce Queensland staff. And I'll also add and community members and invited community members. And then 2, open expressions of interest, invitation to all multicultural groups or others, I'll add that in there, to showcase their own traditional way of doing barbecue and a fire pit activity. Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Guthrie?
Question?
Yeah, please go ahead.
How much is it going to cost and where are we getting the funds from?
I believe that we will know that, but just so you've got a scope of what we're talking about, it's really feeding maybe 50 people with some form of barbecue pit, and it's and then we haven't made a financial commitment today. We're actually asking for expressions of interest on how to do it, but we could get something back for the next
It's
meeting.
a sponsor,
You are,
a council
actually.
sponsor.
You are committing.
You are
council
committing
to-
funds. And we
Yeah,
don't know
but we
where from.
haven't said the amount of money yet.
That's the problem.
Yeah,
Where
you
are we
probably-
getting the funds?
Probably need to reword the first one.
The council organise a community.
Still,
It's still
Just,
funds.
through the chair, it's not much time, it's just a case of, do you feel comfortable about allocating an amount? And did you, obviously you're talking about sponsor and organise a community barbecue fire event, is that potentially taking it from maybe sponsorship or donations or something like that? And putting an arbitrary amount in there and we can come back to council if, should it cost more than that?
Yeah, good point. So maybe we say $2,000, because there might be, if there's local, just the idea is that we just use local people to do it. That may be way too much.
So up to.
Up to.
we just need
And be drawn from the sponsorship funds.
just need to know how much is in the sponsorship fund.
Yeah.
I move we lay this on the table till later in the meeting with that information to be provided.
All those in favour? 6-0. So we don't have any more open, I don't think.
No, just that one, so we'll come back for those 2. One that's before.
Okay, when we get that up and that closed, we can.
We do conflicts first,
Any
Mr Mayor.
conflicts?
Yeah, do you have any conflicts?
Reece?
I do, Mr. What order Cal got them, don't
Yeah, hang on, I'll just. just want to double check that one. It's obviously in the report, but the name's throwing me a bit.
It's one on Orella Road.
Page 28.
Yeah. No, but oh, that's right. Item C4, description Fortunes Crossing, declaring Councillor John Burkett. Personal interest is myself. Particular interest, I own a school bus and a similar school bus run, as mentioned in the report. Type of conflicts, declarable conflict of interest. I have, where's the other, sorry, that, what do I say when I want to stay in the room bit? Sorry, Kel, I didn't have to have that in there.
Although I have a conflict of interest, I respect the decision of council.
Although I have a, I'll wait before that. Although I have declarable conflict of interest, I do not believe a reasonable person could have a perception of bias. Therefore, I will choose to remain in the meeting. However, I will respect the decision of the meeting, whether I can remain and participate in the decision.
Okay, Councillor McMullen.
Mayor, I'll move that it is in the public interest that Councillor John Burkett participates and votes on agenda item C4 because a reasonable person would trust that the decision is made in the public interest.
We have a seconder, Councillor Hancock. All those in favour? 5-0. Any other conflicts?
Yeah.
Who's next?
I've got down on again. Item C14, description request for tender 23048, restoration of public asset flood damage, Baringa Central Roadworks package. Declaring council as myself, the personal interest myself, my parents, Gary and Julie Burkett. And probably, would I have to say about the bus run, or just that's covered under myself?
Yeah.
Just say whatever you.
I think I've got it written in the. I've got it next bit. Particular of interest, I have a conflict as I live in Pinelands Lane, as do my parents, also as part of my bus route. Pinelands Lane is mentioned in the report. Dunedin Road is mentioned in the report, and it is also part of my bus route. Type of conflict, declarable conflict of interest, and the action I will take while I leave the room while the matter is discussed and voted on.
Okay, any other conflicts? Councillor McMullen.
Mr. Mayor, where are we at the top? Item C16, description, request for tender 23044, restoration of public asset, flood damage, Waroo West Roadworks Package 1. The council is myself, Jeff McMullen. Person of interest, myself. Particulars of interest, Roma Earth Moving, DMAC are mentioned in the report. I have a business arranged with them. It's a declarable conflict of interest, and I'll leave the room while the matter is discussed and voted on.
Righto. Any other conflicts? Kel, is there a chance you can just blow that up a little bit more? That whole, just a fraction more. Great, thank you. Right, no more conflicts. Do we have someone to move into closed? Councillor Hancock.
In accordance with the provisions of section 254J3 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, that council resolved to close the meeting to the public to discuss confidential items that is council's consider is necessary to close the meeting. I'm sorry, the time was 11:29, Cal. In accordance with section 254J5 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, the following table provides the matters to be discussed and overview of what is to be discussed while the meeting is closed. C1, dedication of a road. C2, creation of permit waterholes. C3, Big Rig Cafe Management Agreement, option to renew. C4, Fortunes Crossing. C5, request to waive debt recovery legal fees assessment. C6, Roma Airport Cafe Management Agreement. C7, Headache Hill Access Road Arrangement. C8, request for quote production of unbound pavement material. C9, increase in livability through resident safety and property protection for the Maranoa. C10, Wyndham Street, Roma car parking. C11, Mud Derby complaints. C12, childcare consultation, overview of proposals for childcare options in the Maranoa. C13, Roma and District Family History Society, 17 McDowell Street, Roma. C14, request for tender 23048, restoration of public asset flood damage, Baringa Central Roadworks package. C15, request for tender 23043, restoration of public asset flood damage, Baringa South Roadworks Package 1. C16, request for tender 23044, restoration of public asset flood damage, Baru West Roadworks Package 1. C17, payment arrangement assessments, 15020894, 15004831, 15006679, 15006661, 015010994, 13003835, 15005069, 15004922, C18, 1115 Binya Lane, Mount Abundance. Is that it, Kel?
Okay, do we have a seconder?
Before you get a second, can I just ask, and I should have done this at the beginning, but what is the reasoning for C14, 15 and 16, all tenders, being moved into the closed agenda?
Good question.
Because there's actually some private details in those reports which really shouldn't be public. So hence that's why they've been moved in. And there also may be the potential that for some of those you might want to have further discussion that is of a confidential nature in relation to a commercial matter.
So there must be some background behind that.
Tenders we normally do in open now, don't we?
We can do it
Legally.
open.
Well,
We
the
can do it
default
open
is they're
unless there's a
open.
reason why we don't do it in open.
But the second part of your reasoning isn't a reason to have it in closed though, is it?
Look, in relation to those matters, they're enclosed because we believe that's the best place for them to be enclosed, especially in relation to what is actually in the reports. So we can talk through that when we get to those
Sure.
tenders if you wish.
Okay, so and we've had a mover and a seconder, I believe. Have we got a
No seconder.
You haven't got
no
a second.
seconder? Councillor Burkett. All those in favour? 6-0. Use the mic.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to move something, Councillor Burkett?
Yeah, I've got a conflict on item C2, creation of permanent water holes, declaring councillors, Councillor John Burkett, person of interest myself. Particulars of interest, I live on the Maranoa River, and it's mentioned in the report. Type of conflict described, declarable conflict of interest. The action I'll do is, although I have a declarable conflict of interest, I do not believe a reasonable person could have a perception of bias. Therefore, I will choose to remain in the meeting. However, I will respect the decision of the meeting on whether I can remain and participate in the decision.
Councillor O'Neill.
I'll move that it is in the public interest that Councillor Burkett participates and votes on agenda item C2 because a reasonable person would trust that the decision is made in the public interest.
We have a seconder. Councillor Guthrie. All those in favour? 5-0. Do we have someone to move back into close? Councillor O'Neill. Do we have a seconder? Councillor McMullen. All those in favour? 6-0.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, Councillor Hancock.
I'd like to declare a conflict of interest on agenda item C18, 1115 Binya Lane, Mount Abundance. Person with a conflict is myself, Councillor Hancock. The person with the interest would be H5H Transport Trust, owns a transport business.
Yeah, doesn't want to work.
Oh, sorry, yeah, sorry, it's probably just the person is H5H Transport Trust, which is GL&J Hancock in brackets. And particular of interest is that we own a transport business, and the action is that I will. It's a declarable conflict of interest, and I'll leave the room while the matter is discussed and voted on. Oh, we're gonna
Wait till we get
close. Yeah, I was getting all excited.
Okay, do we have someone to go into close? Councillor O'Neill.
Move we go into closed.
Do we have a seconder? or Councillor Burkett. All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0. We doing C1? Or?
C1.
Yeah, Kel said the start seat for her.
Righto, C1, dedication of a road. Do we have a mover? Councillor Burkett.
I'd like to move that Council, in accordance with Section 54A of the Land Title Act 1994, dedicated the road for public use. The whole of Lot 5 on RP 81178 and whole of Lot 2 on RP 115236 within the Township of Mitchell. 2. Authorise the Chief Executive Officer or Delegate to execute the documentation necessary to effect the dedication. And 3. Following the dedication approval, progress the matter through Council's addition to road register and naming of road policies.
We have a second, Councillor Guthrie. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0. C2, creation of permanent water holes. What have we got here?
That's right.
No, well, 1, consult with traditional owner groups and the broader community to seek their input on their interest in creation of permanent water holes. 2, engage with other key stakeholders such as the Department of Environment and Science to discuss how the project could be scoped. 3, be provided with a report a further report to be provided to Council at a future meeting, which will include outcomes of the meeting and the way in which the project or pilot could be progressed. We have a second, Councillor Burkett. Anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0. C3. Big Rig Cafe Management Agreement, option to renew. Do we have a mover? Councillor O'Neill.
I'll move that Council approve the extension of the Roma Big Rig Cafe agreement for a further 2-year period until the 22nd November 2025.
We have a second, Councillor McMullen. Does anyone wish to speak?
I do, very quickly,
go
just
ahead.
to say I think this is a really good outcome. That we've got a business that wants to continue to operate in this particular facility. It's owned by the community, and we need to back it, and I'm happy to have moved it.
Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? I'll speak. Certainly believe the Big Rig Cafe does a great job down there, and wish the owner well on another 2 years of operating the cafe. Does anyone else wish to speak? Does the mover wish to sum up? Councillor O'Neill?
No.
We'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0. Fortune's Crossing. Councillor McMullen.
May I move that Council note the report and acts resolution 0M-12.2021-20. 2. Receive and note the report. 3. Approve the reinstatement of scour protection and road surfacing as a suitable repair scope with works for an amount of up to $30,000 to be funded from the existing financial year 23-24 Bungle Rural Roads budget.
We have a second, Councillor Guthrie. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0. C5, request to waive debt recovery legal fees assessment 14507248.32. Councillor O'Neill.
I'll move that Council 1 waive the debt recovery legal fees for the amount of $708.73 on compassion and financial hardship grounds. 2. Advise the ratepayer and also confirm that the current payment arrangement will need to be adhered to as agreed to prevent further legal charges being applied. And 3. Apply a deferment of recovery action assessment 14507-248 with a review scheduled at the end of each month until the payment arrangement ceases, either by payment in full or default action.
Councillor O'Neill, would you be willing to put point 4 in there which would thank the ratepayer for the for the effort in which being able to speak to council about concluding the matter or something like that.
I don't quite understand what you're trying to get at.
Basically send something in the correspondence that's of an encouraging nature.
Sure.
Do you have any words that you want to put in there?
We thank the ratepayer for their affirmative action in working with council to rectify this personal matter.
Okay.
Their personal matter.
I'll second that. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Just wait for Cal.
Get it right.
Action.
Yep, that's perfect.
All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0.
Who was the second?
Who was the second?
I did.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, moving on to C6, Roma Airport Cafe Management Agreement. Do we have a mover? Councillor Hancock.
I move that Council 1 renew the Roma Airport Cafe Management Agreement with Star Asian Services for a 1-year tenure with 2 further 1-year options on the condition they open 1 hour prior to departures for scheduled flights, RPT and charters. 2, the first 12 months be rent-free with a subsequent review for renewal options. 3, authorise the CEO or delegate to negotiate final terms as specified in the report.
We have a second, Councillor O'Neill. Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0. Okay, C7, Headache Hill Access Road Arrangements. Do we have a mover? Councillor Guthrie.
I'd like to move that Council 1 receive and note the report. 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer or Delegate to finalise negotiations and enter into a legally binding agreement providing access rights to the Headache Hill Quarry over Lot 70 on WT 800341 and Lot 71 on WT 288, which includes the granting of a lease and licence or access agreement over the access to the property owner for vehicle and agricultural use.
We have a second, Councillor McMullen. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0. C8, requests for quote production of unbound pavement material. Do we have a mover? I'd like to move that Council 1 conditionally approve Glendon Group Pty Ltd to provide crushing services to the Roma Quarry to produce a provisional 100,000 tonnes of material generally in accordance with the tender's offer, with the estimated value of $1,129,601 inclusive of GST, subject to A, entering into final contract negotiations with Glendon Group Pty Ltd, the view of increasing the current amount / value of local content involved in the contract. B, entering into a contract with Glendon Group Pty Ltd if final terms are acceptable. And 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer or Delegate to formalise the above. 3, authorise the Chief Executive or Delegate to order further production and associated expenditure above the provisional quantity if required for these projects.
And in number 1, you use the word tenders instead of tenderers.
Okay, sorry. So in point 1, the word should have been tenderers. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so do we have a seconder? Councillor Burkett. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? We're going to go to the vote then. All those in favour? Councillor Edwards, are you there?
Yes.
So you're in favour?
Yes.
Okay, 7-0. Righto, moving on. C9, increase in livability through resident safety and property protection for the Maranoa. I'd like to move that this lay on the table until council, that this lay on the table. Council.
Aren't you going to read?
So it's
To
not laying it on the
undertake.
table, it's actually
Making a resolution.
making a resolution.
Oh yeah. Okay, I'd like to move that council undertake a briefing to identify the full security safety needs of all communities in the Maranoa and identify funding opportunities. We have a second at Councillor O'Neill. Does anyone wish to speak to it? Then we'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0. Righto, so now we're on to C10, Wyndham Street, Roma car parking.
It's actually meant to be Hawthorn Street, but
Yeah.
as the CEO said before, you can't change the name of a subject heading, so.
Yeah, just to clarify this for everyone concerned, it's actually meant to be Hawthorn Street. I would like to move that a report be prepared for an upcoming council meeting about available land and building that could be considered for car parking in Hawthorn Street. In Hawthorn Street. Yeah. Do we have any seconders for this motion? Okay, then the motion is lost.
No, lapses.
Lapsed. Okay, do we move on to C11, Mud Derby complaints? Do we have a mover, Councillor McMullen?
Mr Mayor, I'll move that council receive and note the report, and 2, invite the Roma Mud Derby to meet with council at an upcoming briefing.
We had a second at Councillor O'Neill.
Can I just clarify, should that be a Mud Derby committee? Or executives or
Well, it's the
something?
whole
Committee,
The
yeah.
whole
Committee,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or members,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or members or something?
Committee's fine.
Committee, needs a committee. wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That's why I'm happy with the change.
Yes, so am I. Yep.
Righto. So then no one wishes to speak, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0. Okay, C12, childcare consultation, overview of proposals for childcare options in the Maranoa. Councillor Burkett.
I move that council receive and note the report.
We have a seconder, Councillor Guthrie. All those in favour, no one wishes to speak, all those in favour?
Yes.
9-0.
7.
7-0, sorry. C13, Roma District Family History Society, 17 McDowell Street, Roma. Do we have a mover? Councillor Burkett.
I'd like to move that 1, receive and note the report, 2, endorse rectification works to the accessible bathroom as part of council's is that going to be gone that old? Overall obligation in relation to the owners of the building to a value of up to $15,000 drawn from council's 2023-24 capital works program. 3, review the allocation as part of the Q1 budget review. 4, partner with the Rome District History Society to progress the following items. Tactile ground surface indicators on the access ramp. Security cameras and lights. Water issues to the western side of the building during rain. Storage for 8 chairs. And 5, if more funding is required, bring a report back to council at a future meeting.
We have a seconder, Councillor McMullen. Does anyone wish to
I'd like
speak?
to move an amendment.
Please go ahead.
Just in point 4, on dot point 4, just put the word usable storage for 8 chairs.
So they're not potentially building a new...
Yeah.
And my intent there, Councillor Burkett, is to ensure that they're not put in a place
Yeah.
that is not being used, as in use the chairs wherever we put them.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Okay, is the mover happy with that?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Righto. Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0. C14, request for tender 23048, restoration of public assets, flood damage, Baringa Central roadworks package.
I'm out. I've got a conflict.
Okay. Councillor Burkett's left the room. Do we have a mover? Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that council one not award tender 23048 restoration of public assets Baringa Central Roadworks package. 2. Enter into a large contractual arrangement with Hamill Enterprise Proprietary Limited, trading as Hamill Contracting, for a value of $2,041,058, exclusive of GST, to complete all approved works in the Baringa Central Roadworks package. 3. Authorise the Chief Executive Officer or Delegate to enter into final negotiations with Hamill Enterprises Proprietary Limited, trading as Hamill Contracting, and form a contract to carry out the works if final terms are acceptable.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor O'Neill. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
6-0. C15, request for tender 23043, restoration of public asset flood damage, Baringa South Roadworks Package 1. Do we have a mover? Councillor O'Neill.
I'll move that I'll move that Council 1 select Sufcom Proprietary Limited as the preferred tenderer for tender 23043, restoration of public assets Baringa South Roadworks Package 1, for a contract sum of $3,023,856.58, exclusive of GST. 2. Authorise the Chief Executive Officer or Delegate to enter into final negotiations with Sufcom Proprietary Limited and form a contract to carry out the works if final terms are acceptable.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor McMullen. Anyone wishes to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0. Okay.
I've got a conflict, Mr. I can just duck into this room, can't I?
Yeah.
It's the other road.
Okay, C16, request for tender 23044, restoration of public asset flood damage Waroo West Roadworks Package 1. Councillor McMullen has left the room. Councillor Hancock.
I move that Council 1 select Sufcon Pty Ltd as preferred tenderer for tenderer 23044, restoration of public assets Waroo West Roadworks Package 1, for a contract sum of $3,902,143.41, exclusive of GST. 2. Authorise the Chief Executive Officer or Delegate to enter into final negotiations with Sufcon Pty Ltd and form a contract to carry out the works if final terms are acceptable.
We have a seconder. Councillor Burkett. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
6-0.
Telepathy.
Nothing to say, you can't hear it, you just can't be in the room while it's discussed and voted on.
That's right.
It's crazy.
Okay, C17, payment arrangement assessment 150 20894 1500 4831 1500 6679 1500 6661 150 10994 1300 3835 1500 5069 1500 4922. Councillor Burkett.
You're going to think. Oh no, it's up there yet. Okay, I'd like to move that Council 1 approve the applicant's payment arrangement as proposed in accordance with sections 121G, 121B and 122(5) of the Local Government Regulation 2012. 2. Advise the ratepayer that the next 2 financial years the rates levied on each assessment and accrued interest will be included in this payment arrangement. 3. Advise the ratepayer that the review of the assessments will be conducted every 6 months until the debt has been paid in full. And 4. Will continue with the debt recovery process should the ratepayer fail to make the required proposed payments on or before each due date to reduce the outstanding amount.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Guthrie, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0. Okay, C18, is it?
That's fine.
18,
Yeah.
159.
C18, 159. What have I got that as the...
1115 Binya Lane.
Yeah, that's it. 1115 Binya Lane, Mount Abundance. Councillor McMullen.
I'd like to move that.
Is this?
It's on the screen.
Yeah. That's where you had conflict.
Yeah, I think I've
Sorry.
yeah, I'm like.
We're all on the run.
Councillor Hancock has left the room.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move that Council 1 receive and note the report. 2, authorise the CEO or delegate to write to the ratepayer addressing the issues raised.
Okay, we have a seconder, Councillor O'Neill. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
6-0. What's left from the open, Kel?
Couple in 2.
Oh, sorry.
14.2.
Oh, yeah.
The other two we won't get back to.
Where are we? Sorry.
Page 88 in the.
Which is page 8.
Yep.
Which is in? Oh, I'm in
Page
I'm in the wrong one.
14.2 Bassett Park User Agreement Renewal, Maranoa Netball Association. Do we have a mover?
Councillor Hancock had already. Did I just see that she'd already
Laid
moved?
on the table.
What was up above that?
Yeah, it was laid on the table.
I moved
Laid
it.
on the table. So who was first in moving it?
Oh, no,
Oh,
Councillor
okay.
Hancock.
Alright.
Councillor Hancock.
I move that Council 1 enter into an exclusive use agreement with the Maranoa Netball Association for the use of the Bassett Park Netball Precinct for a period of 5 years. 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer or Delegate to execute the user agreement with Maranoa Netball Association.
Have we got, but we
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, and it's in there. Do you
Yeah.
want to see
Right, okay. So you've seen it, have you?
it? Yes.
Righto. Seconder, Councillor Burkett. And then, does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0.
7-0.
There was one other we were coming back to.
Yeah,
There's,
120.
L2.
L2.
127.
What page was it?
127.
127.
I'll move this one if you like.
Please go ahead. I'll just call the name first. L2, revised policy document, register of locally significant heritage, place, flora and fauna. I've got a question. I see in there, it looks like it's taken out public roads, but I think it should be in there because will not apply to privately owned land or state controlled roads. But sometimes things are on. This is not having any binding, it's just highlighting what the community actually says is important. So they don't really differentiate, and we might have to just advocate with TMR or someone about it.
What's that, Mr Mayor? Like,
So on page 1 of 4, it says the register will not apply to privately owned land or state controlled roads. So, for instance, there could be something of strategic value that we might need to save or whatever. Like, just because it goes on register, it just might mean, how do we, like, for instance, like, it's just triggering something happening that it's important. And it could be, I'm not saying this would happen, but it could be, can we buy that little bit of land so we could save that whatever, or...
you're talking about flora and fauna.
Yeah, flora and fauna or
heritage places is what
heritage.
this is.
So it could be like a road sign that's like an old road sign that the community want to keep. So I don't think it should be excluded, but it's not going to say we've got any control over it. It's just to be able to at least put it to council. Councillor Guthrie?
But the clarification might be that in the statement it's that council will develop and manage. So these are the things that we can basically manage. Maybe that will be an additional statement after that, because that seems to read that this is what we can control. So would
Yeah.
you have something about another dot point that says this register will not apply to privately owned roads? This register will also not apply to state controlled roads, but council would like to lobby on behalf or to
Council will advocate
or
for
advocate
accordance
to-
where the public interest
Yeah.
remains paramount.
So
Just through the chair.
Yeah.
Just nothing's changed from the original policy
No,
when
that's
with
right.
respect to state controlled roads and that. The only we'll stick to that one first. So nothing's changed from the original policy. So what we're looking at is changing, and that's fine. But, so yeah, nothing had changed.
But it's just like, for instance, you know, you get to the front counter and they go, oh, you can't put that on there or you can't apply. This is a way to be able to apply, but it mightn't sit on there, but it might be, it's a way to highlight it. So just some wording so it doesn't chop that out, because I can think of one that someone's brought up and I don't think it's on our council land. It's on someone else's.
What are we registering though, you're talking about?
No, not registering, but just, for instance, it could be some plants that could be on the side of the road that have got historical value, part of an old house, and it's not on council land, but the community want us to do something about it.
So it's on private land?
Well, it could be, it might be on state controlled land. And basically, it's this, someone wanting to apply something doesn't mean it necessarily will be in stone that we can control it. We can't if it's private land, but we can, but we could take the request and bring it to the council and they go, oh, can you cut off that little bit of land and keep that? So
You can
So through the
advocate
chair-
for it.
advocate, yeah.
So through the chair, I was thinking of words along the lines of council will advocate for the request of significant fauna and heritage with relevant owners, because the state's an owner, a private landowner might be an owner.
I don't think
but
we
you're
want to.
recognising that where there's a request and it's important, that you'll advocate even if you can't manage it.
And this
Correct.
might even just come to council first, like.
I'm not sure if I'm on the right page here, but I don't think we should be going to Joe Bloggs and say this, on your land you've got something. Because I know what I'd do, I'd stick a match in it straight away if I didn't want it. Well, that's what they'll do.
Joe Bloggs, it might be,
Mr. Bloggs.
it might be state control.
I'm talking about private land.
Private, yeah.
Because if there's something of significant interest on somebody's property, a lot of them know it's there, they just forget about it. But they don't want people coming and looking and gouging and carrying on. And I know I'm going back 40 years, but a relation of mine, he just stuck a match in the whole show and burnt the lot.
But Mayor, to the director's point, we've adopted this in 2022. This is updating it to what Councillor Edwards wanted, which was to include the heritage register. We already had the flora and fauna.
Yeah, but I think even if it's not private land, to what Councillor McMullen's saying, but it could be, advocate for, or state controlled. Like state controlled land is a lot of land next to council,
Well, state control's fine, but I don't agree with privately owned land. I wouldn't do that either.
Well, it's not. It's the register will not apply to privately owned
That's-
land.
The Mayor was indicating,
Or state,
But
yeah,
that-
so
can I
just-
the Mayor was
say
indicating that
something?
we might be able to do something to negotiate with them.
On state controlled
No, but he
land.
said he'd say private land at one stage.
Oh, did you?
No, but if no one knew what it was, like, I'm not talking about land inside, but I'd be happy even just to leave out private land, but just put in their state control that we could advocate.
If you
I
want,
think we need in there that it says this register will not apply to privately owned land.
Full
you
stop.
could cross the other out, the state control.
Councillor
No,
Yes,
but
it just
can
modify
I say
that.
something?
But
Yeah.
you're just recognising the broader role that you could play in relation to advocating for items of significance on state controlled land.
Yeah, yes, well, even that, now, councillor Edwards, you're
Yeah,
quite
that
very
just
quiet.
fixes it. That having that in there makes it just too hard. Like it's too hard. It's too fixed. And on the other side of the coin, there might be someone with private land who wants to register something. Well, if you rule them out of this altogether, that means they can't put it on there. So, I think people, if they want to, they can register items of significance that's on their private land, or even state control. But whether someone, whether they, consider that appropriate is up to the eligibility criteria at the time. So the eligibility criteria would say, in considering a nomination, you have to take all these things into account. So number one is recognising the asset. Number two is adhering to the eligibility criteria. So I think you need a bit of discretion here. Not just a fixed situation. Otherwise, you just rule that out completely by having that in there. So
Just for the information, the council and the mayor, when we were drafting this, the reason that's highlighted was a bit unclear. So the flora and fauna, the original policy didn't apply to private, but for built form and other sort of structures, etc. Councillor Edwards was quite correct. Yeah, that might be on private property. So the reason it was highlighted was just to say, well, we could retain the flora and fauna as it was, if you're wishing that, i.e. not on private land, but you could just put a dot point saying for cultural heritage and built form, the heritage places, that may be on private, subject to meeting the eligibility criteria.
Yeah.
With the landowner's consent.
Yeah.
Just through you, Mr. Councillor Edwards.
Yeah.
What I was saying, the mayor was suggesting if they don't want to do it, we go and advocate to them, and I'm saying no. If the landholder doesn't want to do it, we don't talk to them. That's when they'll get their back up.
Well, that's
I know where you're coming from, but I know of instances where there's a particular tree of significance, and it's on private land, and it's a well-known fact. Yeah, the person who owns that land knows that it's a tree of significance.
Yes.
And they're aware that it's a significant tree, and so is everyone else in the district. And it's just a vehicle upon which you can register these things if you wish. By ruling it out completely means it's never going to appear on the register at all. I just think it should be in there. It should have the capacity to do it. When we say advocate, we're not going to someone's property and saying you must put this on the register. All we're saying is that we have a register and it's available to be able to put things on. That's all we're saying.
The policy, Mr. Councillor Edwards, the policy starts off saying council will develop it.
And manage.
If we don't put, it does not apply to private land, that means council will be developing private land.
No, develop and manage a register. Register. It's a register. We're not developing land. We're developing a register
on the private land.
And when I was saying about that,
we had people out there, and you know what I'm talking about. There was a particular lane out there where something was destroyed, and it shouldn't have been, and they, we didn't have a register at the time. If we had a register, it wouldn't have been destroyed. So, and that was probably on private. Part of that might have even been on private land.
If it's registered on private land, that doesn't stop the landowner from knocking it down.
No, that's right.
We're not trying to stop it. We're making people aware of it. That's all.
Then why put it on the register?
It's a register of significance.
You just have that flexibility so people can or can't.
It's a significant item. Yeah, you can't. It's like a lot of things. You can't stop things happening, but if the register's there and people are aware of it, for example, there's a sign that I know of, and I'm not sure if it's on state-controlled land, council land, or it's not private land, I don't think, but it's a culturally significant sign, and if it gets
Councillor McMullen. Yeah, I wasn't saying to advocate if they didn't want it there. I was saying, just a bit of Councillor Edwards is saying, what happens if no one knows whose land it is or whatever? But this is not meant to control what private people do. This is actually just not having so rigid it's only on council land, you know.
So in the statement, why not amend it to say, council will develop and administratively manage a register of local significance. It takes any ambiguity out that we're about to manage all of these things other than the register. And the next point down, the register will not apply to privately owned land, in brackets, without the consent of the landowner, close brackets, or state controlled roads.
There's some people that don't like these things registered, like, don't people like people to know that there's something on there? I know.
Well, you put the word consent in
Yeah.
there, then the staff won't
I
put
know
it in the register
one
without
bloke's
the
not with us
consent.
anymore, but there's one on his place just out the road here, and he didn't want anyone to know about it. There wasn't a tree, it was another thing.
Yeah.
My suggestion would be that we actually always be saying that statement as council will develop a register of locally significant. That's it, we'll develop a register. Because that's all we're doing. Like,
that's all
really,
we're
doing.
all we're doing is developing a register.
Yep.
We're not doing
Yeah.
anything with
We've got
that
a register,
register.
We're not pursuing anything else after that.
Yeah.
But I still don't think I like what you said about the next line.
The register will not apply to privately owned land, in brackets, without the consent of the property owner, close brackets, or state controlled roads.
So, Councillor Edwards, are you happy to move something, and are you happy with those suggestions, or?
Yeah, I haven't got anything on the screen here, unfortunately. So I can't. I might.
Hang on, what I'll do is I'll take a photo and I'll text it.
If it does get changed, yeah. Look, I'm happy with those changes.
Can
amendment.
I do, we've overcomplicated this. I
Yeah.
move, we lay this on the table until the ordinary meeting of Wednesday next week.
To get some wording on that?
Yeah.
Through the chair, I think you've got a very clear option. You either take that line out, and then you know, based on the conversation you're going, okay, you're going to develop and manage a register. Yes, the policy has been modified from the original policy. It's not going to be limited to private land or state-controlled roads. It's actually that will develop a register, or that you actually just add it in. The register will not apply to privately owned land without the consent of the property owners or state-controlled roads. Remembering policy is a living document, you can come back and modify that at a future date should we have some issues. I think to lay it on the table, it's not a complicated issue.
No, I agree. I'm happy for it to continue today, and we'll vote accordingly, I think.
Is there enough in that to know what we're...
He can't
can't
see it.
No,
Which is why-
And Mayor, I've moved a procedural motion, you've got to put it.
Righto. All those in favour of laying it on the table till next Wednesday, is that right?
Yep.
Against?
Against, lost, carried 5-2. Any further business?
No, you've got
Got
one more.
One more.
Which?
Yeah, that's what I'm
134.
asking for. Any further business?
134.
Okay, L3, proposed community barbecue / fire pit event with live entertainment.
We need to wait for
So we're waiting on where we're getting the money from.
Do you want to lay it on the table?
We haven't got enough time, we've got to get moving with it.
Working on the community,
The sponsorship
budget.
current budget is is how do I read that? Okay, I'll circulate this. 121,000. Oh, 490. No, that's the other way around. The current budget for 23-24 is 116,500 plus 100,000 for common co. Resolution. I don't know whether there's anything left.
Mark.
No, I guess I thought. Who seconded it?
I'll circulate this. So it
No
doesn't-
one.
Oh no, it didn't get to the.
Oh.
It was later on times.
I don't think we actually got to the point where anyone moved that resolution.
Which one?
the last one.
Yeah,
No one did know.
The mayor and councillor.
So you've spent 120.
No, the one before.
Oh, the one before.
The one you've just moved to next week.
That one.
That one.
Yeah.
Ah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yes.
there wasn't a mover at all.
That's not
Yeah,
right, though. It's not 5-3, Kel.
Sorry,
5-2.
2, yeah.
That was my concern, that the sponsorship budget had been exhausted.
But we're still, you know, we're still cash positive. We know that, you know, it mightn't be in that budget, but we might have to rejig it. So it's not as if we're spending something that council doesn't have. Like, we'll well and truly be able to cover $2,000.
Mr. Mayor, keep in mind this is tied in with the scholarships that we. This was part of that resolution that we're going to work with grow rural cohorts, etc. And this was the medical scholarships. Do you remember that?
It could be.
It was a definitive amount though for those scholarships. If you start to eat into that, we're going to have to amend what we're giving to the scholarships.
So just so we can finish the meeting, where can we get it from CEO, just as a quick thing, and you do it and make it as a change in the Q1?
Look, you've spent all your sponsorship, whatever budget, short of just finding another line item, which I just can't think of off the top of my head, but you could say is, or you could say draw the required funds from the sponsorship budget with a view to include the allocation and adjustment as part of the Q1 review. Q1 review. If you understand what I mean, is you're already over allocated. You've already added some stuff in there, and this will be another thing that you're adding in there. And Q1 budget will come back, adjust all of those monies, and the 2,000 will be included in that because you've over allocated the whole program and made some other additional budgetary decisions like 45,000 for the aeration of Gallas Fox Park. Which is coming from that donations budget, and 50,000 for the annual Cobb and Co Festival, another 6.5.
Sorry, just on that.
Right.
5,000 for the aeration. Wouldn't that come out of parks and gardens or field maintenance? What would that come out of sponsorship?
So let me just have a
Sponsorship,
look.
because it's not our.
It is ours, isn't it?
For a further 22,000 for the traffic management for the event at Gallas Fox Park.
I thought we owned the field.
We do own the field,
from
yes.
Sponsorship. Look, I have circulated you an email, but look, I think the simple point is you've well and truly overexpended that budget, which was originally 116,500. You've already got 4 different items that you're going to have to review as part of the sponsorship budget for Q1.
So this will be 5.
And this will be 5.
Oh, that's
and
that table.
Council can live with that. The sponsorship general ledger, Kelly, is 02887. I'll come across and have a look.
Sorry, Edwina, is the sponsorship budget what you just said? Is it in the negative?
Yes.
Yep.
Because you've paid all.
This will be the 5th thing outside.
And that also consider it as part.
Take it out of general funds if you want to.
This is what I was saying, that 45,000, like.
But we've got to get to this meeting, so. Okay, I'm happy with that. Is the seconder happy with that?
I am, yes.
Righto, I'll speak to this. I think it's a big initiative for Maranoa to put the best foot forward, giving an interesting barbecue event for health workforce participants that may well find the Maranoa as a home. So I think putting our best foot forward is something that we can do and partner with Health Workforce Queensland to deliver this barbecue. Does anyone else wish to speak? Then we're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
Councillor McMullen?
I'm against.
Okay. All those against? Okay. 6-1 if I can call for a division. Okay. Any further business? Then we'll close the meeting at 5:25 p.m. and thank you for your attendance.